Welcome to Rome Dispatch, coming to you from the Vatican in this very historic period of the resignation of Benedict XVI, and we are now in the first day of the sede vacante, the vacant see of Peter. In this daily report, we will try and bring you all the updates from the press briefings in the Holy See press office, as well as a guest or two who may be live in studio or who also may be seated by my side. I think that many of us now are still reliving the amazing moments of yesterday, especially the afternoon, the Pope's very touching departure by plane to by helicopter to Castel Gandolfo, his arrival and jubilant greeting by the populace, all of this being followed by a Vatican television helicopter giving us amazing images of the Roman countryside, of Castel Gandolfo and so forth. And just about as the Pope took off, he did issue his last tweet. That account is now closed today. But in his last tweet he said, "Thank you for your love and your support. May you always experience the joy that comes from putting Christ at the center of your lives." What a beautiful message. And then he had another beautiful message at Castel Gandolfo, very brief, very heartfelt, from the balcony overlooking the town center, the main square of Castel Gandolfo. And he thanked the people in very moving words, all of them. He said, "I'm happy to be with you, surrounded by the beauty of creation and your well wishes, which do me so much good," he said. And he said, imparted his blessing after many beautiful words, and his final words were, "Good night, thank you." Now, the doors of the castle were closed at 8 o'clock, and the Pope's apartment in Vatican City was sealed at 8 p.m. And we now have a video, I believe it's the first time ever, from Vatican television of the sealing of that apartment. Now we're looking at images of the people from what is called the Apostolic Chamber. We have Cardinal Bertone, which many of you may recognize by now. He was the Secretary of State until last night at 8 o'clock, and he is now the Camerlengo of Holy Roman Church. With him proceeding to the papal apartments is the Vice Camerlengo, that is Archbishop Pier Luigi Celata. We also have Archbishop Sciacca, who until yesterday was the Secretary General of Vatican City State. He is a member of the Apostolic Chamber, the Camera Apostolica. And this is a body, an organism, a body of people that comes into being, if you will, in the Vatican only during the sede vacante. Now you can see the ribbon being put on the doors of the papal apartment. Various seals will be put on. And this is actually quite exciting because those of us covering this are also seeing this for the very first time. We have, as I said, the Cardinal Bertone, other members of the Apostolic Chamber, and there is one layperson present, and he is a notary for the Apostolic Chamber. You can see a seal being put on that ribbon going across the papal doors. And the object, the baton almost, you might call it, that Cardinal Bertone has in his hand is called a ferula. And it is the symbol of his authority as Camerlengo, Chamberlain of Holy Mother Church. And so we had the sealing of the apartment, and again, very, very moving because of the fact of the unique nature of our seeing this film. And by the way, part of that also, which we did not see in that particular picture, was the sealing of the elevator that leads to the papal apartment. Now, a big important event that happened today. We had, of course, a press conference, which we're going to be going to in a few minutes. There's going to be press briefings every day, and those are the updates that I want to bring to you from Rome. And there were a lot of important announcements made today about the procedures that will take place, that have taken place today in the Vatican and take place in coming days. We know that Cardinal Sodano, who's Dean of the College of Cardinals, a former Secretary of State, he did send a notice to all of the cardinals that they will be called to the congregations in Vatican City on Monday, March 4th at 9:30. Those meetings will probably last about 3 hours in the morning. A second meeting is expected to take place in the afternoon at about 5 o'clock. And it's going to be the cardinals themselves, and not necessarily the dean who imposes it on them. It's going to be the cardinals themselves to decide the pace of their work, the length of their work days. A question was asked at the press conference today: will the cardinals on the first day, Monday, announce the opening date of the conclave to actually vote for the next pontiff? And there's no way that anyone can know that at all. Father Lombardi indicated that it could be from Tuesday on, but only the cardinals are going to know that. And we're going to have, in a very short period, a video from that press conference and some very moving words, an exchange that Father Lombardi had with the Pope Emeritus's secretary. And among the other things that he did announce today, and this was kind of exciting for everybody who's in Rome because they can go out and buy them, there are special stamps issued for a sede vacante. And you can see now what those stamps are going to look like. If you go to the Vatican Post Office, they are ready for purchase. Special coins will be issued as well. They will not be ready for several months. But on the left of your screen, you will see the papal, well, you can't say papal, we don't have a pope, the sede vacante coat of arms. You see the silver and the gold key, normally topped by the triple tiara of the pope. And this time, this like umbrella-like structure, that is the coat of arms used, because there is no pope, the coat of arms for the sede vacante. So if you're in Rome or coming to Rome, you can now get those stamps at the Vatican Post Office, and there's one right in St. Peter's Square. And then the coins you're going to have to wait, so come back in apparently May or June. And now I know we do have some footage from this morning's press briefing. And that'll be coming up in a minute. But very moving comments, you will hear them by Father Lombardi on a conversation he had with the Pope's secretary this morning. And his own feelings, Father's feelings, as the papal spokesman, as the head of the Vatican press office, Father's own feelings. He said he could hear in Monsignor Georg Anschwein's voice how serene and relaxed he sounded. So we will be getting that to you very, very shortly. There were a lot of topics covered, kind of technical questions and things like that that are covered in the press conferences every day. Journalists get questions that are just part of their they have to know for their procedures when they're going to do certain coverage. And then just interesting little tidbits of information. Have all the cardinal electors arrived? And no, they have not all arrived. And I guess that tape is ready for us now. So here is a snippet from this morning's press briefing in the Holy See press office.
To give you some idea of how the Pope spent his evening last evening, how Pope Benedict, Pope Emeritus of Rome, spent his evening, we spoke with Monsignor Georg Ganswein this morning, Archbishop Ganswein, and he told us that both of them had a very good night's sleep, as you can imagine. They had dinner, and they watched television. They watched two newscasts, Italian newscasts, of the day's events. This is an opportunity to thank the news folks that are here, the television stations and networks that did a magnificent job in telling the world the story that we witnessed yesterday. Following dinner, there were prayers, regular evening prayers, and then the Pope read some of the messages, the many messages that have come to him. He went for a walk in the corridors and in some of the great reception rooms of the palace that overlooked the lake. Today, they woke up, they had Mass this morning at 7 o'clock, as he normally does, and he will spend some time in the Vatican gardens, of the Castel Gandolfo gardens, saying the rosary as he normally does. Usually in the winter time, he goes for a walk around 4 o'clock in the afternoon and says the rosary. He brought some books with him. Father Lombardi asked if he brought anything particular. There are several books about theology and history of the Church, and one particular title that caught Archbishop Ganswein's eyes was a book that the Pope purchased when it first came out, The Aesthetic Theology of Hans Urs von Balthasar. And so it's an important theological work that the Pope has with him. Another factor that came out yesterday is in the weeks leading up to his departure, the Pope played piano every evening after dinner. There was a piano in his apartments, and you can probably be sure that he'll take up that habit again in Castel Gandolfo. Last night, obviously, we didn't hear any music because he was watching television, but he'll most likely be taking up piano once again. I think those are the most important.
Yes.
I find those words, and I found them when I was listening to them this morning, this afternoon actually, in the press conference. I find those words very consoling. It does sound indeed like Benedict XVI, Pope Emeritus, is relaxing. He does not have the heavy burdens of the papacy on his shoulder anymore. It sounds like his household staff is very relaxed. If he could sit around and watch some television, now of course the entire media is going to want to know what television channels he watched. I'm sure that probably won't come out. But if he can sit and relax, just like any of us at home, and watch television and have dinner, and then walk around the rooms of the Apostolic Palace on the side that faces the lake, as I understand it. Those are very beautiful because the bedroom side and living quarters side of the Apostolic Palace there looks out onto gardens but not onto Lake Albano. So again, I find that very, very consoling. The Pope's going to have his reading to do and hopefully relaxing and maybe even putting on some weight. I've heard a lot of people say they hope he eats well and puts on a lot of weight. Now, some of the other questions that came up in the press conference, actually some questions yesterday and some today, were what about the media covering this? How many people are here, have asked for accreditation? And the figure given was 3,641 journalists have asked to be accredited here in Rome for these events. They represent 60 countries and 24 different languages. As a matter of fact, they're still coming to Rome, as are apparently some of the cardinal electors. There were 144 cardinals present yesterday in the morning when the Holy Father had his final meeting with them. And somebody noted that the 144 cardinals equals the apostolic number squared. 12 apostles, 12 times 12 is 144. I thought that was a cute figure that somebody thought was an interesting observation. So the cardinals are still arriving, and one of the cardinals, we're going to be hearing from very, very shortly, one of the cardinal electors, and that is Cardinal George Pell, Archbishop of Sydney, Australia. You were here yesterday with my colleague Mary Shevlin and I, and Mary had an occasion to speak to Cardinal Pell, and he's going to be one of the guests, as I said, sometimes taped, sometimes present in the studio. So we now have Mary and a few words from Cardinal Pell about this period in history.
It's been an emotional week for all of us, an emotional past couple of weeks since Pope Benedict announced his retirement. And now that he's retired, how would you, one of his closest collaborators, describe this pontificate?
It's been 8 years of hard work, of brilliant teaching. As the Holy Father said this morning, at times of calm when he felt he was able to fish quite effectively and efficiently, and also every now and again violent squalls, difficulties. The Vati leaks is one example of that. But I think his pontificate will be typical of pontificates for the future. The world of the press is very powerful, coming often with quite a different and hostile agenda. That's one reason why I'm so grateful for the work that EWTN does. But that's a fact of life, and the Holy Father answered that challenge, and I think he answered it well.
What are some teachings that maybe he's proposed over the past 8 years? And, he's been very insistent on faith. They expected him to be so harsh, but it was a pontificate really marked by love. What are some teachings that you've heard over the last 8 years?
I wasn't a bit surprised that he wasn't nearly as harsh. That was an absolute caricature, de Panzer Cardinal. That wasn't the man I knew at all. He's very much the German gentleman, German professor, a gentle and faithful and prayerful priest, a very kindly and wonderful man, and I think that came through to the people.
What about any personal memories? We've asked some of the cardinals that we've spoken with, because you get to know him in a way that most people never will, or work with him and so on. What are some personal memories you can just share with our audience?
Well, when I congratulated him on becoming Pope, he said to me, well, we've known one another for 20 years. That was almost correct, but we worked together. I was a member who came in for the plenary meetings, the Doctrine of the Faith, for 10 years, from 1990 to 2000. He came out to visit us for World Youth Day, which was a wonderful success in Catholic Australia and non-Catholic Australia. He was a guest in my house. He came to open the Domus Australia, the Australian Pilgrim Centre. I remember him very fondly and with gratitude, and I felt real moments of sadness this morning. And I felt for him as he had to decide whether it was time to go, whether it was beyond him. And I admire him for the decision that he took, but it does change the situation a little bit.
One of the last questions I had was, you're going to be participating in the conclave, and it's a very special time for cardinals. It's a heavy responsibility. I mean, for all of us who will just be looking at this chimney for the next week or two, as you're in there and you're not able to talk to any of us, what will you be going through?
Well, just before I answer that, there's one other thing I think I should have said, and I think one of the most important contributions the Holy Father has made is to liturgical reform. He realized that in the Western world, especially, our liturgies were in danger of becoming too horizontal, community celebrations. He very much reinforced the need for us to be open to transcendence, that we're worshipping with the choirs of angels and the body of Christ across the centuries, and that all our sacraments are essentially acts of worship. And he worked very successfully at the big World Youth Days and at these gatherings and at all the masses for silence and prayer. And two of my most beautiful memories of him were at the vigil in Sydney at the World Youth Day. It was just so silent, all these youth, 150,000 of them. Then there were 400,000 youth on the Sunday morning for Mass. And after communion, there was perfect silence. I could hear the birds singing. They were beautiful moments, and I hope we don't lose the momentum that we've gained towards the restoration of a proper sense of worship in the liturgy. He said something which I didn't appreciate early enough, and that is that bad liturgy is one of the things that contributed to the sort of problems that we have. Now, what will I be thinking of when I go into the conclave? I'll be thanking God that I'm not alone in making this decision, that I will be with, I think it's 114 others all wise cardinals, an enormous range of experience. Many of them would have been through much tougher times than I ever have. I come to Rome recently, frequently, not, well, I'm here recently now, but frequently. So I've got some idea of the challenges of the church and just how important it is for us to discern what the Spirit wants us to do and to get it right.
What's the atmosphere like? We imagine it to be very somber and everyone's in silence. Is it almost a moment for collegiality and a little bit of fun?
Well, it's a very edifying time in the Sistine Chapel, and what struck me forcibly was the manifest faith and devotion of the other cardinals. I found that fortifying and consoling, and I'm sure it'll be the same this time.
Well, that was wonderful to hear. Cardinal Pell, our paths have crossed many, many times in Rome, and as he said, he does come here quite often, as do a lot of the cardinals. What you have to understand is that when a man becomes a cardinal, when the Pope has named him a cardinal, he also assumes other duties in the Holy See, in the sense of not working full-time in the Roman Curia, but they come to Rome because they're members of pontifical councils or members of congregations, and as such they'll have to come several times a year for business. So the cardinals do have one way to get to know each other when they're in the Eternal City and break bread and have a few meals together. One interesting thing, the Cardinal was mentioning the number. He said he's glad he doesn't have to make this decision by himself. He'll be with 114 other cardinals. And I was just looking at some figures today. If you go back to the conclave in 2005 that elected Cardinal Ratzinger, there can be 120 members who vote under 80. Cardinal electors. 2005, there were only 117 who could vote. 2 were ill. So just like this year, we are down to 115 of the cardinal electors being in town. And another phrase of the Cardinal Pell's that I'd like to take is his description of the Pope as a gentleman. One time, Pope Benedict's secretary asked me if I thought Americans knew the Pope well. This was before his trip in 2008. And I said, they ask me questions, and have I ever met him, and what's he like? And my answer always has been, and I told the Pope's secretary, he's a gentleman and a gentleman. And I think we've seen that these days. We've seen it in his pontificate. And Monsignor Georg said to me that was the best description he had ever heard of the Holy Father. So words that will probably go down in history because others have said the same thing about this now Pope Emeritus. Now, in coming days, there are 2 people whose names you will hear a great deal. You've already heard them. 2 people, 2 positions. 2 cardinals, Cardinal Bertone, who is the Camerlengo of Holy Roman Church, and Cardinal Sodano, the Dean of the Sacred College of Cardinals, kind of like the president of this club. And those are terms which I'll explain each of them at a little greater length, exactly what their responsibilities are. Because most of them, certainly the Camerlengo, it only happens when either a pope dies or in this case retires and we have a sede vacante. So you'll be hearing more about these 2 key figures in upcoming events, the congregations that begin Monday, the 4th of March, and then the conclave, and we'll only know next week the actual date of the conclave. So that's it today from Rome, and I'm Joan Lewis. I'm with you on Rome Dispatch. I'll be here daily, so tune in for news updates and a guest appearance. And thanks for viewing. Stay tuned.
Thank you very much, Joan. That's terrific. Rome Dispatch. And of course, later today, you can catch an encore presentation of Rome Dispatch with Joan Lewis and other special programming. The best way to keep track is go to EWTN.com and check the program schedule in your area. And we'll continue, as Joan indicated, to bring you Rome Dispatch with Joan Lewis every day to keep you up to date on what's happening. And looking ahead toward the middle of next week, Wednesday, March 6th, you'll see us ramp things up with a special Rome edition of EWTN Live at its usual time, followed on Thursday by special Rome editions of The World Over Live and Life on the Rock. Then on Friday, March 8th, our coverage expands with more daily live programming from Vatican City. Beginning at 9 a.m. Eastern, EWTN Vatican Daily with Colleen Carroll Campbell kicks off, offering in-depth analysis and perspective on the day's events. And then at 2 p.m. Eastern, the one and only Raymond Arroyo is there with his guest experts, bringing you all that's happening in the Eternal City with Live from the Vatican. And then on radio, look for Tom Price hosting our daily program, EWTN Radio Live from the Eternal City. Now, this is a special radio-only program. Check it out. And of course, we always invite you to make EWTN your everywhere source for the latest interregnum and conclave news information. You can follow us on Twitter. Just hit hashtag EWTN-from-Rome. And of course, whether it's TV, radio, streaming on the web with EWTN.com, Roku, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or checking us out on Facebook, please like us. That would be great. EWTN is everywhere. And of course, just in time for the interregnum and the upcoming conclave, download our free EWTN app to watch us on your iPad or iPhone. Plus, the Android version is coming soon. Look for that. And just a reminder to please keep us between your gas and electric bill. This is a family affair. And we will be back tomorrow morning with another edition of Rome Dispatch with Joan Lewis. That's at 10 a.m. Eastern, 1600 Rome time. I'm Doug Keck. Stay with us through our coverage. Thank you.